Hey, everybody. What's up? Welcome in to Best on the Board, presented by BetMGM. Michael Beller and Casey Joyner here with you on this lovely Friday, December 31st, the final day of 2021. So let us be among the first people to wish you a happy new year. Hope you have a very happy, healthy New Year celebration tonight, whatever it might be. We're going to look past tonight. We're going to look ahead to Week 17 Best Bets. We have a big 16-game slate ahead of us with 15 games on Sunday and then the Monday night game between the Steelers and the Browns. So, Casey, Happy New Year to you, my friend. Let's jump on in here.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too. Looking forward to it should be a very interesting slate of games. A lot of it's an interesting week 17. Let's put it that way.
What makes you say that like that?
Because you have so many games that are going to look like they're going to be really close. You got a lot of blowout games. You got a lot of storylines. Say Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and such. There's just a lot of different ways to go. If you're interested in a nice smash mouth game, you're going to get it. But if you're interested in a blowout, I think you got a lot of them too.
Yeah, I'm going to be circling around to that Pittsburgh and Cleveland game for my final pick of this show. I'm with you, man. We've got it is an interesting slate. You have a fair number of games that don't seem to have a ton at stake for at least one team, if not both teams. And it's going to be something that typifies this Week 17 slate. You are going back to the well here, my friend. 2 weeks in a row now, 2 shows in a row, you have gone with 3 big favorites. All 6 teams you've picked over our last 2 episodes together have been favored by more than a touchdown. And man, I mean, you're getting crazy today because forget about 1 touchdown, right? Forget about just being favored by 1 touchdown. All of your teams need to win by at least 2 touchdowns for them to cover the spread. You've got 3 big favorites. I'm actually messing around with some totals on this show. I made some changes, and we'll talk about that as we get into the show. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun slate for sure. And it still doesn't it feel like obviously, like, this is our first season, so of course it's going to take a little bit of getting used to of 17 games and 18 weeks, but it feels like in my chest, in my bones, that this is the last week of the regular season.
It does. It just doesn't feel like there should be week 18. It's like, what? Where there's going to be? It's like that the season ends January 9th. That Super Bowl 11 was played on January 9th. If you go back in 1976 season, this season literally ended on the full season ended. So that's the way of the world in the NFL now, though. We keep getting longer years.
Yeah, pushing things out to President's Day weekend this year and for years to come now with how we're going to get the Super Bowl. So that's just the world that we're living in now. Let's get to the picks. Let's get to the Week 17 picks, Casey. As I just said about a minute ago, you were going with 3 big favorites. Let's get things started with Bills and Falcons. The Bills are 14.5-point favorites right now on BetMGM. A big game for the Bills to keep keeping pace because those Patriots also huge favorites, and we'll talk about that in a second. Why do you like the Bills to win this one comfortably?
Well, I'm comfortable going with these teams. I'm feeling better as the season goes along. Not doing a self-brag here, but it was 5-1 of those picks were over the past couple of weeks. So I'm feeling good about that. But that's the thing that's trending is these teams we're starting to see over the course of the past month. They're starting to see really get to understand who teams are. And I think, as you mentioned, there are teams that have things to play for and teams that don't. When it comes to Buffalo, Atlanta, I think a key to understand Buffalo, they got 4-3 records since they got upset at Jacksonville. 4 of the opponents in that span were strong teams. And 3 of them they lost to Indianapolis, New England, and Tampa. And they had a 12-point win over the Patriots. You look at when they play a weak team, though, the Bills play the Jets, Carolina, and New Orleans, and they beat them by a combined score of 107-37. Atlanta's 3-4 over past 7 games. They beat against powerful teams, but they beat Jacksonville, Carolina, and Detroit by a combined total of 21 points. I look at those and say Atlanta can beat weak teams. When they face strong teams, they tend to lose by a lot of points. And Buffalo, when they face a weak team, tends to destroy them. So I'm saying I think Buffalo is going to keep that trend going because I think Atlanta is nowhere near their class. Plus, Buffalo is going to get back. It looks like they're getting back. They're going to get back Gabriel Davis this week. It looks like getting Cole Beasley back this week. So their offense is now going to be at a different tier than it has been recently. It's still pretty good recently. So I like the Bills a lot in this one.
Yeah, I can't push back against this, and I really can't push back against any of the picks that you're going to be making. I'm not necessarily going to make them myself, but I can't push back and say, I would play the Falcons. And actually, of the 3 that you're playing, this one and maybe the next one, this one, Patriots, are probably my 2 favorites among them. We talked about this early in the season with the Bills too, right? The first time they played Miami was a 35-0 victory. They've got a 40-0 win over the Texans in their pocket this season. They have destroyed bad teams all season long. It's actually been like the one consistent thing they've done this year, because Josh Allen's been a little bit up and down, and when he's been good, he's been very good. He's been that Josh Allen, but there's been some down periods for him. The offense hasn't been quite as consistent or explosive as it was last year. The defense has ebbed and flowed for them. The one thing that they've done from September all the way through here to January is destroy bad teams when they've played them. And I don't see any reason why that changes here against the Falcons this week. So I like this. I like this pick. Bills minus 14.5 against the Falcons. I'm going to take us to one of the marquee games of the week. It is Chiefs and Bengals. And I will say initially, I had this penciled in as recently as like 2 hours ago, KC, as being Bengals +5. That's the line on this game. Bengals +5 at home against the Chiefs. And again, as recently as 2 hours ago, I had the Bengals as my pick on the Friday edition of our fantasy football podcast, where we do something similar to what you and I do here. I picked the Bengals +5. But I'm getting very worried about how pubby this game is becoming. Everyone is on the Bengals, and I like the Bengals. I think the Bengals are a good team. If forced to pick against the spread, I'm still picking the Bengals. But this is becoming the public favorite this week, the favorite public bet to make. You were seeing so many people in on the Bengals, saying that this is this unstoppable offense after what we saw a week ago. And yeah, they looked awesome. And I think that that's the beau ideal of what this offense can be and what this offense will be in the not too distant future. We know that Joe Burrow is putting himself, I think this is the game that puts Joe Burrow on the map nationally in such a way that, the AFC, we talk about Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, and those guys being the quarterbacks to lead their offenses for the next decade or so. I think this is the game that puts Joe Burrow on that map nationally. I do think that the Bengals offense can go punch for punch with the Chiefs, but I don't want to be on this public train with the way the Chiefs are playing recently, getting in on the Bengals +5. So, I'm just going to trust the offenses to do what they do in this game and go over 51. I mean, another thing, I think the big takeaway from the Bengals last week, their win over the Ravens, isn't that we should necessarily think the Bengals are just this new big offense, but that, Rams -5, that game is climbing up. And I don't see how the Ravens, with their secondary as depleted as it is, slow down the Rams. But yeah, that's a different bet. This is the bet I'm talking about. Both these offenses look like they're going pretty well. I do think that it's going to be a game where you have to get into the 30s to win it. I don't want to get on the Bengals because of how pubby it is. So I'll just say both offenses do what they do, and we get over 51 here.
The Chiefs have scored 118 points over the past 3 weeks, despite having injury issues. I mean, in that time frame, you can say Travis Kelce, fantasy managers, were a couple of games there when he was scoring 5.7 points in 2 weeks in a row. They were saying, well, how terrible this is. I mean, that's who they are. They can dominate that well. Plus, the Bengals, their passing offense did great last week because of how Baltimore, they're so banged up in the secondary. The one thing that the Chiefs don't do well is stop the run, and the Bengals can attack that too if they want to go that way. High scoring is you can pass a lot. They can also run the ball a ton, and I think because Kansas City has allowed 130 more rushing yards in 3 of the past 4 weeks, and I think the Bengals could go after that as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Mixon go over 100. I do like over 51 on this.
And the Bengals defense that we've talked about a lot this year as being a big part of the story for them this season and being at the top of the AFC North and one win away from winning that division. But it's more of a run defense strength than a pass defense strength. So both teams can exploit what the other team is bad at defensively. And I do think that you're going to see that in this one. So I'm leaning Bengals, but this is just, when the public is going against Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to side with Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going to stay away from that and just say offenses do what you do. Let's go over 51. Patriots and Jaguars, your next pick. Patriots 15.5-point favorites. To me, KC, this is very similar to what we just talked about with your first pick, the Bills. The Patriots, another one of these teams that has destroyed bad teams this season.
They have, and I mean, they've lost 2 straight games, but look, they lost into powerhouse teams. This is they're not losing to poor teams. They're powerhouse teams. Excuse me. I'm looking at Bill Belichick needing this is a Bill Belichick team needing a win to clinch the playoff spot, and they've got a home contest against Jacksonville, an offense that just lost his offensive engine in James Robinson, and they've got a rookie quarterback. He struggled all season long. It's a road game against the Bill Belichick defense. I just keep looking at this saying, where am I seeing Jacksonville? I mean, I have trouble seeing Jacksonville getting to double-digit points. I really do, because New England is that good of a defense. Forget what they did the past couple of weeks. It's, again, powerhouse teams. I think Jacksonville could score 9 points in this contest. And New England's offense,
what they've been doing for the last 2 months.
Exactly. And New England's offense, can I get New England's offense up to 24-27? Yeah. And plus, frankly, honestly, a big reason I'm for this, I think the New England defense can score a touchdown. And if the New England defense scores a touchdown, okay, now I only have to get maybe 17 points out of the New England offense, maybe 20 points out of the New England offense. And I think they're more than good enough for that. So I think this says more about how Jacksonville, they've been the worst team in my power rankings for weeks, and it's by far the worst team. They're nowhere near even the next team up. So when you're that bad, I don't know that 15.5 is enough. I think this thing should be 20.
This has the look of that middle of the season stretch when the Patriots were just getting bad team after bad team and taking care of business. 54-13 against the Jets, 24-6 against the Panthers, 25-0 against Atlanta. Like, they were just rolling through these bad teams, and I don't see any reason why this should be any different for them. I mean, you know what? You could put the Week 12 version of the Titans in there too. I mean, that was a bad team. That was without Derrick Henry. Obviously, that was the first or second game, but definitely without AJ Brown. Like, that's a bad Titans team when they're playing without those guys. 36-13. Like, these Patriots do not mess around when they have a clearly inferior team on the other side of the field. And the Jaguars are just lost to the Jets. So you want to talk about clearly inferior? This is a team that lost to the New York Jets. They're clearly inferior to basically everyone in the NFL. I like this one. It's a huge spread. I typically just close my eyes and run away from these ones, but Patriots have been covering these sorts of numbers against bad teams all season. I think they can do it again against the Jaguars here. I'm going to take us back to marquee world here, KC, for my second pick. Cowboys and Cardinals. Cowboys are 6-point favorites in this game at home. The Cardinals are falling apart, man. I mean, they just are. This has been a weeks-long trend now for them. And something about DeAndre Hopkins not being out there is different than just taking his bottom line numbers out. There is a gravity to DeAndre Hopkins and what he brings to that offense that they cannot replicate without him. And you're talking about an offense that really does need every single person in it to be contributing at a high level for them to get to that high level that we've seen from them this season. So there's no DeAndre Hopkins. It looks like maybe no James Conner again this week. And if we do have James Conner, it's going to be a significantly compromised James Conner. And they're falling apart. And this has been, I try not to read too much into historical trends year over year because teams change so much in the NFL, and not just the team you're talking about, but their competition. Everything in the NFL changes so much from year to year that you don't want to put too much stock into what happened in 2019 and try to apply that to 2021. I do think that with a 3 years long trend of Cliff Kingsbury teams fading in the end of the season is something we're thinking about. And this is the third year in a row that we've seen this from the Cardinals. And now you're talking about going up against a Cowboys team that really looks like it deserves to be considered among the top 5 Super Bowl contenders in the NFL. And I don't see there being enough offense for Arizona to stay within a touchdown in this game. I just can't see it. I can't see with the way that Dallas is playing, with the way that they have really sort of on the fly made Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard into combined one of the best running backs in the NFL. I mean, they get a ton of foundation there. We know that even though we haven't seen huge passing game performances from Dak Prescott with consistency over the last 6 weeks or so, that obviously that club is still in this offense's bag. They get after the quarterback. They can get after the quarterback in a big way, and that makes their defense, maybe more fearsome than it seems when you just start adding up all the pieces on paper. They can really make life hell for Kyler Murray, who still seems like he is running only as a last resort. And that's another check mark in what I was talking about with Hopkins and Conner. Like, this is an offense that when all of its dudes are playing 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 football, it can be really dangerous. And part of that for Kyler is the run threat. And he looks like he only wants to run if he absolutely has to. That takes a huge bite out of this offense. Cowboys are ascending. Cardinals are slipping. I think the Cowboys win this game by double-digit points.
Cowboys are winning. You mentioned an offense. They got the pass rush. They're getting turnovers. Special teams, they get the block punt last week. I mean, they're dominating, in every area. It's not just one area. They're dominating in every single area. I mean, last week it said as much about how bad Washington is and how compromised they were personnel-wise. But still, if you go out there against a weak team and you can go up to 42-7 halftime lead, that's huge. Cardinals lost three straight, 4 out of their last 6. They lost 34-10 to Carolina, 20-12 against Detroit, 22-16 against the Colts team that was missing, a third of its starters, 9 players. We're missing 4 offensive linemen at one point, and you still lose to them by 6? I mean, I look at this going, I just don't see where it is. And it is a wonder that Kingsbury hasn't figured out how to get his teams to play good later, because a college coach comes to the pros and they got shorter seasons in college, obviously. So, okay, maybe you can see that for year 1. but he still hasn't made the adjustment by year 3. And again, if he was losing to good teams, it's one thing. When you're losing to Detroit, it says your team is not ready to play a 17-game schedule. So again, I'm with you on this.
And what a fall from grace for this Cardinals team. We were talking about them maybe getting the blown by in the NFC and at least looking like they were well positioned for a home playoff game. And now you're talking about going to LA or going to Tampa in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, this team's going to I don't see any way that this team goes on the road and beats a good team in the playoffs. And we were talking about them maybe going to the Super Bowl as recently as 4 or 5 weeks ago. So a huge fall from grace, and I think that continues this week against the Cowboys. We've got one more pick apiece. First, however, I want to give you a message from our partners over at BetMGM, the presenting sponsor of Best on the Board. Right now, bet $10, win $150, plus get a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic. And that is if you're a new subscriber to The Athletic, you'll get those 3 months for free right at the start. If you're an existing subscriber, just going to tack on those 3 months for free to whenever your subscription ends. Go to betmgm.com and use the promo code TheAthleticPod to take advantage of this offer from the king of sportsbooks. Again, it is bet 10 to win 150. Any bet, your first bet $10, win 150. Doesn't matter what the odds are, plus 3 free months to The Athletic. Go to betmgm.com, use the code TheAthleticPod. This is a new customer offer for BetMGM customers. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Casey, let's shut things down here with one more big favorite from you. The Jets, man. These poor New York Jets, they play in the same division as Tom Brady for 2 decades. They finally get rid of him. And now here they are playing a Week 17 game against Tom Brady where they're 2 touchdown underdogs at home. I'm with you on this one. Bucks minus 13.5 feels like a good play to me.
It is. I mean, you see Tampa struggled a couple weeks ago. They've got the offensive issues, and they face Dennis Allen coach defense. And mind you, the Saints seem to have their number, so they look terrible. But they come out last week and they don't even play it. They don't have a great game. They play well, but they don't look quite what they did a few weeks ago, and they still win 32-6. They didn't have Godwin, they didn't have Evans, and they had Gronk catching only 1 pass for 23 yards, and they did that. So looks like Evans is coming back this week. They still have Gronk, obviously. The Jets, they've allowed over the past 4 games 1,525 yards and 97 first downs, and they've gave up 31 or more points in 3 of those 4. They get a couple upset wins to their credit. They beat Tennessee and Cincinnati. I mean, come on. I'm looking at this going, you give up 1,525 to those teams, and now you're facing the Bucks, and the Bucks probably getting Evans back. I mean, I just see this being another Brady blunt. Plus, again, the Bucks need to win the game, and I give the Jets credit for fighting as hard as they have of late. They're still got. Give Robert Saleh credit for getting his team to show some effort at this time of the year, because there are some teams that are just mailing it in. It doesn't matter. I just think Tampa's that much better and that much more talented, and I think that they win this game. I think that they could get another 32-6 victory. Wouldn't surprise.
Yeah, the 1 seed in the NFC, the 1 seed in both conferences, of course, is a huge deal nowadays. Since you're the only team that gets the bye, of course, you get home field advantage. But the 2 seed in the NFC is a prize this year because we're just talking all that trash about the Cardinals, but you would still rather play whoever that 7 seed is than the Cardinals. You'd rather play whoever that 7 seed is going to be than maybe the 49ers, right? Like you're looking at the Eagles, like the 2 seed is a prize in the NFC, and the Rams, the Bucks, and the Cowboys are all there jockeying for position, and so you do want to keep on winning if you're one of those teams. And hey, maybe the Packers do slip up here, and you still stay alive for that 1 seed. The Packers are playing the Vikings without Kirk Cousins and the Lions to end the season, so I don't think the Packers are going to slip up. I think they're going to be all right. I think they're going to go ahead and cruise to that number 1 overall seed in the NFC, but you never know. You never know, certainly. So the Buccaneers do need this, and need it or not, this is a very soft spot for them to go up against this New York Jets team. I'm with you. I like the Buccaneers as well. I'm going to round things out for us here, KC, with the final game of this Week 17. The final game, most likely, almost certainly, it sounds like, of Ben Roethlisberger's career in Pittsburgh. Browns and Steelers. Browns are actually field goal favorites in this game on the road, which I like a little bit, but I like even more the total here. These 2 teams are under machines. The 41 is the total on this game. And all the Browns do is play in games that don't get into the 40s total. Right? The Browns have a bad offense. It's bad. Yeah. The only thing they do well is run the ball, which runs the clock and keeps things moving. They have a good defense. The Browns are an under machine. They pump out unders almost regardless of who they're playing. And then the Steelers on the other side, we've talked about this a few times over recent weeks, KC, like they still have playmakers. They can still wake up and make a big play every now and again, But this is a bad offense too. This is an inconsistent offense. The run game has totally run out of steam over the last 3-4 weeks here. Najee Harris is still grinding out useful fantasy games because he touches the ball 30 times a week, but that run game is totally out of steam. The Browns are going to be able to get a ton of pressure on Ben Roethlisberger. We know this to be true. The last time these two teams played, 15-10. Why is this suddenly going to triple up or double up that score? It's not going to. These are two teams that cannot be explosive. They cannot be exotic. They want to win the same way by controlling the clock, by playing very good defense. They can both do that. Neither of them are going to hit on very many big plays. The Browns passing game has no juice. This game definitely stays under 41.
Browns have rushed for 100 or fewer rushing yards in 5 of the past 10 games. They posted fewer than 200 passing yards in 5 of the past 6 games. I mean, the Steelers have gained 100 or more rushing yards in the ground twice in the past 6 games. Neither of these teams can move the ball well at all. Like you said, they're going to be able to get pass rush pressure on Ben. Both teams are going to want to try and play a smash mouth game. I'm completely with you on this. And Pittsburgh, again, if you're going to do anything against them, you are going to run the ball, and that's fine. But look at Cleveland. Cleveland plays Green Bay last week, and that game was what? It was 24-22. So that, I mean, but they combined for 46 points, and they're facing one of the best offenses in the league. And okay, now you're facing an offense that's mediocre. Let's say the Pittsburgh Steelers are 20th as best offense, or 16th, whatever it is. They're middle of the road at best. So if you got 46 and you're facing one of the, and again, Green Bay had actually a bad defense too. So you're talking a team that, or actually a subpar defense. They had some weaknesses. So you got a team that doesn't play well. You're going to that situation. You put 46. Yeah, I have trouble. I have trouble seeing this thing getting close to 40. Like you said, it was 25 last time around. If they're in the 30s, I think it's fortunate for these teams.
First to 20 wins this game, and it might not even take that. I mean, right? This might be a first to 17 sort of situation, sort of like it was the first time they played. And
it's almost volleyball, first to 21.
Yeah, right. It seems silly to think that these two teams are suddenly going to give us like a 27-24 game, because neither of them have been really playing in those games with any sort of consistency this season. So then when you put the two of them together, like, that's a good point with the Packers. Like, when the Browns are a good enough team that they can play a game like that and keep it close with the Packers and get it to 24-22. The Steelers, we saw do that, about a month or so ago when they had that furious comeback against the Chargers. Like, there's enough juice in these teams that when the other team forces them to play a style, 2 out of 3 times, 1 out of 2 times, they can come up and play that sort of style and make it a game. But when they're playing each other and they both want to play a slow, run-heavy, win with our defense sort of game, it's silly to suddenly think that it's going to be 27-24. It would have to be defensive touchdowns, special team touchdowns, Nick Chubb ripping off a 90-yard touchdown run here, Najee Harris ripping off a 70-yard touchdown run there. Like, that's how this game somehow gets into the high 40s. And if that beats me here, so be it. This is gambling for a reason. I'll live with that sort of loss. But I don't think that this is a game where we're suddenly seeing Baker Mayfield and Ben Roethlisberger both throw for 8.5 yards per attempt going back and forth, and one of them winning 27-24. I don't think that's the case. That's not the way these teams play, and frankly, neither of these teams is capable of playing that style of football. So give me under 41 and give it to me comfortably, and that will do it for this episode of Best on the Board. Thanks so much for listening. As we said off the top of the show, a very, very happy new year to everyone out there. Have a safe, fun holiday. Have fun, great time celebrating. Enjoy the college football playoff games that we've got coming our way. Just for the record, give me Alabama, Cincinnati under. Go blue for KC for sure. I'm a Big Ten guy. I can get on board with any Big Ten team, cheering for any Big Ten team other than Michigan State, because there's too many football and basketball run-ins for a Badger like me with Michigan State over the years to be able to cheer for them. But any other team in the Big Ten, I can get behind and root for. I think it's going to be the Ohio State script is not going to work for Michigan against Georgia.
No.
Hassan Haskins isn't running for 1 billion yards untouched against Georgia the way he did against Ohio State.
No, and they don't have that crowd either. The crowd was. I ran into somebody down here. I live in Florida, but actually a couple weeks ago, ran into somebody at the store who was wearing a Michigan shirt, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And talked to her, and she said, "Yeah, I was at the game." And she told me just how insane that was. She said, as crazy as you thought it was on the air, she said that I think that caused Ohio State to want to just get out of there, and you don't have that environment in the playoffs. So we'll say if that. But hey, if we're Michigan fans, if it's 42-27, we just got our T-shirts in that celebrate the wins. So we're we're good for the next few months, even if we lose tonight. But go blue.
There you go. I'll be pulling for Michigan for sure. But yeah, the one play I do really like tonight is under 57. I believe is the total on it right now between Cincinnati and Alabama. But we'll be covering that all over the place. Again, Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year to you too, KC.
Happy New Year to you.
We will talk to you all soon. We're back with you next week. Until then, have a great weekend. Happy New Year. And as always, happy betting. See you later.